Don't you just hate when the doorbell rings and you go and open the door and there's two pesky Jehovah's Witnesses with their materials in hand, ready to talk to you about the problems in the world? You're kind of in a no-win situation there. We know that we basically are always told just to say to them, thank you, I'm Catholic, I'm not interested, and close the door. But sometimes people feel, no, I'm being rude doing even that. So we don't want to do that. But at the same time, we know if we try to get involved with them in a conversation, they could very easily run circles around us. And they don't play fair. So I certainly don't encourage people to engage them in conversation unless you know what to say to refute their arguments, which is actually rather easy if we know enough about what their tactics are. They don't play fair because what they usually do is they aim at Catholics who maybe really don't know their faith that well, maybe people who are not regular churchgoers, and they'll say things that are false that they'll present as a truth, and if the Catholic doesn't understand that this is not what the church teaches, they say, oh, wow, I didn't know that, and they say, you see, the church is lying to you. We'll tell you the truth, and then they just suck the people in, and that's how they get so many of the people that they do, and why so many of them are ex-Catholics that they attract. You can refute them if you know what to say. My father got them once, because they'll say things such as, this is one of the untruths that they did. They did this to my father once. They said to him, did you know that the Bible promises heaven on earth? And normally they're expecting the person to say, no, I didn't know that. Well, it does. Did you ever hear that from your church? No. Well, you see, your church is lying to you. So they said that to my father, and he said, no, it doesn't. And they said, yes, it does. He goes, no, you show me in the Bible where it says it promises heaven on earth. The Bible never says that. And they said, okay, thank you, sir, good day. And they left. I would know exactly what to say to them. But if you want to win the argument with them very quickly, I'm going to give you something that you can, please always remember this. This is how to deal with those pesky Jehovah's Witnesses at the door. The minute that you realize that they are Jehovah's Witnesses, say to them, oh, thank you very much, I'm so glad you're here. Now you've piqued them, you've aroused their curiosity, and they think they have somebody that they're going to easily win over. And you say, because I have a question I want to ask you. When are you forecasting the end of the world to take place? And maybe they'll know a date or not, and they say, really? And if they say, oh, and such, well, you forecast it 8 times before, and you've been wrong every time. So since you've been wrong about that, how do I know that anything you say to me is going to have any credibility whatsoever? I have no faith in anything you have to tell me. Thank you very much. Good day. And then close the door. Now you've made them think, because they probably don't even know that the Jehovah's Witnesses were wrong 8 times as to when they were forecasting the end of the world to come. And you've left them with maybe a little bit of doubt on their end, rather than them leaving us with doubt on our side. But it brings up a very important question that we address in today's gospel reading, and that is, what is the obsession that so many people have about trying to figure out when Jesus is returning in glory? Certainly everybody's going to have a curiosity about it, but some people go crazy over it. Born-again Christians and so many others. And they write books and they do all this stuff trying to convince people that they've found secret codes in the Bible and Nostradamus and all this other stuff, and that they've figured out when Jesus is returning in glory. And there have been so many people, especially since the 1800s, doing that, and they've all been wrong. Some of you may remember about 10 years ago, Harold Camping was doing that. And he was forecasting the end of the world. I think it was May 21st, 2011. And even good, faithful Catholics were starting to believe it. And I remember having to talk with some people. They called me in the rectory and said, Father, can you please come and talk to this guy? He's smitten by everything that Harold Camping is saying, and we can't convince him that the guy is phony. So I went and talked with him, and yet this guy, oh no, but it's so obvious. He makes it so clear when he talks about it. Well, the only thing that convinced him he was wrong was when May 22nd came along, and the world didn't come to an end on May 21st. And of course, when that happened, Harold Camping had to say, oh, well, I made a mistake in calculation. It's actually a date in October. And there was this one man in Staten Island who spent his life savings, $140,000, on billboards and advertisement, doing everything possible to warn people to get ready because Jesus was returning in glory in October. And then, of course, that day came and went, and they interviewed him afterwards and say, "What happened now?" And he says, "I don't understand it. It was so clear in the Bible." Where was it clear in the Bible that Jesus was returning in glory in October of 2011? If it were clear in the Bible, we wouldn't be having a conversation about it. And after that, Harold Camping suffered a heart attack and died, and that was the end of his movement, another one of the false prophets coming along claiming to figure out the end of the world. And one thing I tell people, I said, that is absolutely clear in the Bible is what we hear in today's gospel reading. Of that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. And in another place, Jesus says, "Do not be misled. The time will come when people will say, 'I am He,' and the time is at hand. Do not follow them." That's clear in the Bible. So anybody who comes along and claims to say they figured out, through whatever it is, the codes and this and that and everything, when Jesus is returning in glory, the first thing you know is they have no idea what they're talking about. Don't listen to them. And that's what Jesus clearly tells us in the Bible. Do not follow them. But why do people worry so much about trying to figure out when Jesus is going to return in glory? Remember, that's only going to be important at this stage for anyone who may live until Jesus' second coming. We know He will return in glory. He's promised that as He ascended into heaven. The angels said He will return in glory the same way you saw Him ascend. And we pray it in the Creed. He will come in glory to judge the living and the dead. And we know that day as the last day, the day of reckoning, many other different things we know it. And we know it will be a day when Jesus has the final triumph, when He stands in judgment before all the peoples, whether they believed in Him or not, and metes out justice, punishment to those who did evil, and reward to those who were good. And we long for that day. And we hope that we're going to be on the right side of judgment when Jesus comes. And that's what we want to do. But do we have to worry about knowing when He's returning in glory? That's only for those who might live until then. If you and I pass away before that, well, that's when we stand in judgment before the Lord. That's our particular moment of judgment where we're first judged by God. And some people have the ability, they know beforehand that maybe they don't have much time left to live, maybe because they're elderly, and they know, well, I don't have 30 years left on the earth, so, I really have to start beefing up my game now. Or maybe somebody who his doctor has told them they have an illness that they will only survive a certain amount of time. But how many people, the day they died, woke up and got dressed and went out to work and had no idea they would never return that night, that this was going to be their last day? And when they stood before the Lord, I wonder if they said to Him, "Lord, if you had only told me I was going to die today, I might have done things differently." And that's what Jesus is talking about today, not worrying about that. I think some people want to know the day because maybe they love their sins too much and they love Jesus, but they also love the sinful things they're holding on to, and they don't want to let go of them. So they're trying to figure they can have it both ways. They can follow the Lord and still do these things, and if they know on Thursday at 12 noon or something like that He's returning, they'll go to confession right before that, and they'll be ready. They'll be holy and all clean when Jesus returns. And they might decide to do that and say, okay, Wednesday night, then I'm going to go out and have my last hurrah. I'm going to go out and have a big feast and a party and, oh yeah, lots of sinful things. I'm going to get blotto drunk, and I'm going to do all that stuff, and then I'll make sure I go to confession beforehand. And late Wednesday night or even Thursday morning, even before they get to confession, they get hit by a truck and killed. Now that's their particular moment of judgment. So they're playing a dangerous game with that, and also thinking that Jesus doesn't realize what's in our minds and in our hearts, that if we're trying to play a game to get around Him, to still hold on to our sins and seem holy in His sight, He knows our hearts. He knows what we're about. He knows ourselves better than we do. The good news, though, to remember is that Jesus is trying to get all of us into heaven. He doesn't want anyone not to go to heaven. And He's made it very simple. He says, I've shown you the way. Follow me. Worship me. When you realize you've committed a sin, confess it. Receive my body and blood as your food and communion to unite yourself with me on the cross over and over again. And you follow me, and you listen to what I tell you to do, and you're golden. You won't have to worry about whether you were caught off guard, that you did not know when you were going to die or when I was going to return in glory. And one of the most beautiful examples of that I've ever come across came from the life of St. Charles Borromeo, Cardinal Borromeo, who was the Cardinal Archbishop of Milan. And the story is told that he and several priests were playing cards one night, and they were talking precisely about this question, about, suppose you knew you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do? And one said, oh, I'd do this. The other one said, I'd do that. And the Holy Cardinal said, I'd just continue playing cards. Not because he was being flippant or not concerned about his salvation, but because he knew he was following the Lord each and every day, and he didn't have to worry about being caught off guard. And so all we have to do is follow the Lord, listen to him, but listen to him and let Christ be the light of our life and the only one we follow, and not the voices of the world. Sadly, sometimes we try to entertain both. We try to follow the Lord and also the passions and desires of our hearts and our minds. The things the world teaches us are important. And we're following two different gods, if you will. As Jesus says, you cannot serve both God and money. So it's one or the other. No, we have to give ourselves totally and completely to Christ and say, Lord, you are the only voice I will follow. You are my light. You are my salvation. Let me stay always close to you. And if we do that, we're fine, because the Lord is trying to get us into heaven. One of our newest beatified individuals, who hopefully soon will be a full canonized saint, Blessed Carlo Akudis, who died in 2005 at only 15 years old of a very rare form of not tuberculosis, of leukemia that hit him, and he was diagnosed with it, and within 2 weeks he was dead. But he said while he was dying, he wrote a letter to his mother, and he said, I'm not afraid to die, because I have never spent a moment of my life doing anything that is displeasing to Jesus. I wish I could say that about my life. But he was, even at a young life, he said that. And he accepted his death well. He offered his sufferings for the Holy Father, who was Pope Benedict XVI at the time, and for the church. And one of his other lines that he had that is just so powerful and so moving is he said, to live my life always close to Jesus, that is my life plan. And he got it. A 15-year-old boy taught us the message, the way to salvation, the way to happiness. What is the meaning and purpose of life? It's right there. To live my life always close to Jesus. And that's why I selected him to be our new youth center downstairs, going to be the Cardinal Akudis Youth Center, that he would be an example for our young people as well as for all of us. All we have to do is stay close to Jesus and listen to him. It's not always easy, because sometimes it means we have to change our minds. We have to believe things we don't want to believe, or reject beliefs that we want to hold on to, or do things we don't want to do. But when we do, what peace we have. We find peace in this life. We find the presence of the Lord that changes everything. And most importantly, we're ready to meet the Lord at any moment, so that whether we know when we're going to die, or if Jesus should return in glory while you and I are still alive, he will turn to us and say to us, well done, brave and faithful servant. You remained faithful to me. Now enter into the glory of my heavenly embrace for all eternity. May we always strive only to remain close to Jesus each and every day. Let that be our life's plan. May Jesus Christ be praised, now and forever.